I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries.
Oh man, I would get to school at 7:15. I run a couple of after-school and before-school organizations, so I wouldn't get home until like 4:30 or 5 after I've done all of my tasks. But it would be, 55-minute class periods, grading papers, interacting with 150, 200 people every single day. So this is definitely a very strange experience to switch into.
That's a normal workday for Mel Pryor. She teaches 6th and 7th grade social studies at Toledo School for the Arts. As you can guess, today we're talking to teachers for this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries under quarantine. The transition to online classes has been a mixed bag for Mel. On one hand, the school and the technology department has been extremely prepared for this shift to online classes. Actually, Mel's students already have individual iPads that was added into TSA's curriculum 7 years ago. But a classroom is not just a place for learning, it's also a place where students can be around other students their own age.
They're missing that huge social part of school by being home by themselves. So that has been a bit of a, I wouldn't say obstacle, but I've been having a hard time trying to figure out where that's going to fit in my curriculum. Because with 6th graders, try to put 20 of them on a screen and have a conversation, it does not translate well.
Cody is also having unique challenges. He teaches part-time online at the University of Toledo. That job hasn't changed much, but he also teaches at the Westside Montessori School. He teaches Spanish and outdoor education to students who are around toddler age, all the way up to 8 years old.
A lot of the students are so young that we really don't use a lot of technology with them in the class. And so I think that's one of the biggest issues is now we completely have to change the way we're teaching these kids. I've kind of had to take a step back and say, okay, what do we need to be teaching right now through this lesson? We started by teaching how to wash your hands. So we had this idea of having a Spanish song singing about, washing your hands. And as teachers, we can totally adapt. And that's kind of our mentality. We adapt and then we keep flourishing with what we're trying to teach in those moments. We're kind of just using it as a learning moment to test ourselves and see, okay, how can we, completely rearrange the end of our school year and make it so that the students are still successful and feeling good. So it's been kind of hard, but it's also been really rewarding, I think, and really satisfying.
A surprising reward for Mel would be the intimacy that Zoom meetings has provided for herself and her students.
Honestly, the video chat was not a thing that I thought that I would really like, but it's so much more intimate because we're literally going into our students' homes and they're inviting us into their homes. So there's a little bit more of a closeness that I feel like is happening. Like our first day of having these meetings, my students instantly were like, okay, I'm bringing my pet and we are going to have show and tell. And it was just kind of like this fun moment where we could all bond together and just be kind of goofy. Kids were making waffles, and people were in their pajamas. So there's been a lot more camaraderie, even with my students in that. So I get to experience the social side of them completely separated from that I'm trying to teach you a concept. So for me, that has been really helpful getting through this.
I think every teacher is having to find their own unique way in handling a classroom under quarantine. And they're not alone. Parents are in this as well. A simple browse on Facebook or Twitter will present a handful of funny stories and memes in regards to parents sharing their homeschooling horror stories. One mom writes, "Been homeschooling a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old for 1 hour and 11 minutes. Teachers deserve to make $1 billion a year or maybe a week." Another mom comments and says, 8-year-old is covered in paint. 17-year-old is not speaking to me because pandemic is ruining her whole social life, and it's obviously my fault. They're pretty funny, but it does present an interesting conversation. A conversation about how we treat our teachers in American society.
I do feel, based on some communication I've had with some of the parents, that there's definitely an element of respect that I think that they have now that maybe they didn't quite understand. The second day, I had a parent email me and ask me for tips on how to get their kid to work at home. This parent, who's been with their child for 12 years, reached out to me for help. So I feel like that's a really huge step in the evolution of education.
I mean, it happens in small waves and across the country in different states here and there, but I think this is going to change everything, not only with teachers, but just all of the people that have been deemed essential that normally we just kind of forget about or, we pay as low as we can. And we move on. But I think with this, we're starting to really realize like what kind of people and what kind of roles in our society are really important.
I've noticed, in a small way, how society has changed during my commute home from work. On a nice day, I might see a few runners, maybe a few people on their bike, but never as many families taking a walk as a full family unit together, or as many couples walking with their dog. Lately, I've wondered where these people were hiding before the quarantine. And Cody seems to share that sentiment.
I have seen families coming together in a really cool way that I think we've missed out on, sitting and enjoying the moments a little differently, I think. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is people are just realizing to slow down a little bit, and they're finding the joy in slowing down more than anything. I've been seeing a lot of families we connect to talk about how many more meals they're having together, how much more time they have for reading together and things like that. So I think if anything, it's just going to make the community a little bit stronger and the family household even stronger.
I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.